And now, an original TV Land presentation.
Every star remembers their first time. Whether it was a big break, a little break, or a lucky break, one job changed their lives and fortunes forever. This time around, John Schneider and Dean Cain share memories about their first times. This former pro football player tells us an origin story that begins on the beaches of Malibu, takes a hop, skip, and a jump to the world's most famous zip code, then soars up, up, and away with America's favorite superhero. Dean Cain takes us back to the start of his career on My First Time.
I was born in Detroit, Michigan, at Selfridge Air Force Base. My mother had already been divorced from my biological father, and she was living with her parents, so she was always enamored with Hollywood and the idea of being a Hollywood starlet. So she moved out to Los Angeles. She picked up myself and my brother, and we moved out to Malibu and lived in Paradise Cove, which is a trailer park. But it's a trailer park in Malibu. It's pretty ideal. Kids that I grew up with in Malibu, you know, Chris Penn, Sean Penn, Rob Lowe, Charlie Sheen, Emilio Estevez, all these kids were in the same, we all grew up in the same area. And Sean Penn was the first one to get into film and acting and doing something. I heard about some of the other kids were getting into it. Rob Lowe was getting into it in the high school years and things. I never even entertained the idea that I wanted to be an actor or work in the film business. I was a student and an athlete. I wanted to play sports and go to school. I went off to Princeton University. I was lucky enough to get accepted there and played football there and ran track and played volleyball and had a great, wonderful college experience. And then I was an All-American football player there and set a couple of NCAA records, which got enough attention from the professional ranks that I was able to go play football for the Buffalo Bills for a short time till I got injured. So within a few months, the two things that I had always done best in my life, schoolwork and football, were gone. And I was suddenly sort of thrust out there into the world and having to make a living. So I started acting. I finally got a few little guest starring roles. Beverly Hills 90210.
In the episode that apparently everybody on the planet saw, episode of Beverly Hills 90210, where he played Shannon Doherty's love. And it was funny because I saw that episode and he just jumped out so much that I said, you know, it's got a matter of time for this guy.
Here I was, feeling guilty for deceiving you when you knew all along I was French.
Well, maybe not all along, but the truth is I'm really glad you turned out to be a red-blooded American girl. So you don't regret missing your plane and staying here with me in Europe?
No, not at all. I really think I'm falling in love with you, Dylan. I mean, Rick.
And then I was lucky enough to go in for this project, the new Superman project, called Lois and Clark, The New Adventures of Superman. I walked in the room, and I was apparently the first actor that they had seen. Sitting there, says, "Hi, how are you, Dean? Nice to meet you." I said, "Nice to meet you." And so we read the scenes. I said, "That's great, thank you." Shook my hand. I said, "Thank you, bye." And I left. And a week went by, and 2 weeks went by, and I thought, okay, there goes. That's just another project that's gone. And then the next day, my agent called and said, "Hey, they're pretty high on you for this Superman project." We had to do these 2 scenes, and there was a possibility that you have to learn to do this 3rd scene. And I did my 2 scenes with different actresses, and I sat out there knowing they're going to say, "Dean, you can go home now." And I would get that phone call that I was going to play Superman. Well, they came out, and they said, "Dean, they'd like to see that 3rd scene." And automatically, right then at that moment, all that bravado and confidence that I had was flushed down the toilet. I thought, I screwed this up. It was mine, and I've done something to screw it up. I could not believe it. Fortunately, I was prepared to do the 3rd scene, and that was a scene between myself and my father, which was actually in the pilot. And Eddie Jones played my father in the show.
It seemed right to me for the part. You know, certainly for Superman. He seemed to have command of himself.
When we finally shot the pilot, it was, I think, January or February of 1993. And we didn't go on the air until, I think, September of that year.
From Beverly Hills High to the lost planet of Krypton, Dean Cain returns with more stories about his first time.
And every day that I was gone for a period of about 18 hours. Every single day, 5 days a week.
The show really was a romantic comedy that happened to be about this woman named Lois and this guy named Clark, and he just happened to be Superman.
I think it was a challenge for him because, in essence, he was playing two different parts. You know, he's playing Clark Kent, and then he's playing Superman.
Dean, when you watch him work, has a kind of diffidence as Clark Kent, a kind of very subtle Cary Grant-esque diffidence. But then when you see him take action, and he stands there with a confidence and a strength and a physical grace that is commanding and imposing. And for me, playing Lex Luthor, it was fantastic.
Samuel Platt, Dr. Baines, those probably aren't the only skeletons in your closet.
So you become both my judge and executioner?
Like any other citizen of the planet, I must obey the law. I am not above it. You, it seems, believe you are.
I hold a certain position in the city.
Yes. And there is nothing that would please me more than to see you dethroned and behind bars like any common criminal. That day will come.
Well, I trust not. But, as they say, let the games begin.
Oh, one more thing. If you ever need to find me, all you have to do is look up.
The flying was very interesting because, well, I'm an athlete, first and foremost, so for me that was a lot of fun.
The flying stuff, we would do a couple different things. There would be a thing called a teeter-totter. It would be like a teeter-totter we'd do that would do like smaller, lower level things with Dean, just, rising up a little bit, and maybe picking up Lois Lane, Terry Hatcher. And then we'd do the bigger ones, which were big rigs on the stage against green screen, which he would be flying up in the air probably about 20, 30 feet.
People don't realize you have two little screws kind of coming out of your sides, and they drop a cable on each one, and that's it. That's how they fly you. So all the rest of it you have to do as the actor. You have to find your balance and be able to step off and move at the right time, and it's a difficult thing.
The other thing that Dean would do very intelligently is he created a gym off stage for himself, and he'd work out every day. He also had the burden of having to maintain this incredible physique.
I think he told me his body fat was around 7%, which puts him in world-class athlete range. That spandex suit is particularly unforgiving.
I was gone for a period of about 18 hours, every single day, 5 days a week. And we would start work Monday morning at 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning, and I'd finish Saturday morning at light, 7 o'clock in the morning.
One of the things that allowed him to handle it was the fact that, as I told you, that he played basketball during the lunch hour.
Playing basketball all the time, so we wanted to go play basketball, so they built a little basketball court. And, there were some fun times there when I look back on it when Clooney was shooting ER and all the guys from Friends were doing their thing there, and we'd have basketball games. And when they were shooting Batman, there was a time where it was myself and George Clooney and then Chris O'Donnell. We had Batman, Robin, Superman all in the same court.
It was interesting for me to watch Dean and Terry because I'd never been in a situation like this where you watch young actors get their first big break and then see what it does to them and how it works on them.
The objective of a career in Hollywood is longevity. It's not about being a flash in the pan. Dean got his break in Lois and Clark playing that role. But the question always is, what do you do with the fame? What do you do with the power when it comes to you?
Dean has deliberately made, I think, really interesting career choices since then.
I don't doubt that as time goes by, he will choose and continue to act, he will direct, he will produce, he'll go in a multifaceted direction.
Every job that you take, you have to ask the question, do you live to work or do you work to live? I work so that I can live and provide for my family and my friends and myself. That's what I do. I enjoy the artistic part of it, and that's the balance that I've been able to find for the last 7 years. That's where I am now, but interview me in 5 or 10 years, I'll be someplace else, I bet you. Stay tuned.
Dean went on to produce and host Ripley's Believe It or Not and had major roles in Out of Time with Denzel Washington and the series Vegas, co-starring Cheryl Ladd. Next time on My First Time, see how the stars turned those big breaks, little breaks, and lucky breaks into gold.